Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with Lauren Minear. She has just released a fantastic new track called Last Generation, and I'm super excited to talk to her all about it. Lauren, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
Thanks so much for having me, Austin. I'm doing great. Thanks so much.
You are very welcome. What's going on the East Coast these days? Is it heating up?
It's getting there. We're having hot afternoons. I
Mm,
think that we've been spared most of the heat wave going on in the rest of the country. So
yeah,
relatively, it's not so hot.
but it's great weather for making music. Is that correct?
For sure. Always great weather for making music.
Always. Doesn't need to be hot, doesn't need to be cold. Might help if you're snowed in though, so you could just sit in and focus. But
For sure. Although I'm a mom, so I write all of my songs in like very contained, highly focused periods of time when
that,
my children are out of the house.
yep, fully makes
Weather,
sense.
rain, snow, it's if I've got my time, that's when I have to focus on
Completely understand.
it.
Well, you have this song out. It's your second single. It's called Last Generation.
Yeah.
It's wonderful and it's really heartfelt from beginning to end. And as a listener, I could sit there and go line by line and try to transcribe what I think it means, but I'd love
Mhm.
to hear it from you. What does the song mean to you and what inspired it?
Sure. So the song is the second single off of my project called Invisible Woman, which I wrote. An album that I wrote largely about being postpartum during the pandemic.
Mhm.
I had my second child 2 weeks before the pandemic started.
Oh,
It was
jeez.
it was it was a difficult year
Yeah,
for me and for all parents of young children and for the world, obviously.
right.
And I think that the experience sort of put a magnifying glass on the already difficult experience of being a mother of young children during this time in history. And Last Generation specifically, um, I wrote that song about the way that I was feeling on the morning that the sky in New York State turned pink from
Mhm.
the fires in California.
Oh, wow.
And I don't live in New York City, but I was getting texts from friends saying that like there was smoke in Manhattan from the fires in California, and it felt like this sort of apocalyptic moment. I'm sitting here at my desk, I could see the sky was pink. And I wrote it about the anxiety that I felt that morning in the context of the pandemic and all of the civil unrest that we were experiencing, about what the future looks like for my children. I have a now 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So
Wow.
that was the inspiration for the song. And then, if you take it line by line, I talk about some of
Sure.
those
Well,
concerns.
that's a heavy song to say the least, but do you feel any amount of relief having like obviously we're all living in our heads at some point and we're
Hmm.
experiencing things just like others, but I feel like there has to be some amount of relief actually writing the song and getting it out there and
For
somehow
me,
moving past.
yeah, for me, I mean, I'm sure a lot of writers are this way. Writing is very much like a coping process. So
Yeah,
I sort of take a feeling, put it into um, words and sonics, and it gets it outside of myself.
totally.
So absolutely, yes.
Great. So I have to say, like, for the right reason, the style in the song is it's not quite stripped back, but the
Hmm.
production is pretty minimalistic and it obviously is very lyric forward.
Hmm.
Did you have any outside help putting this one together in terms of like, like the background, like the production on it, I suppose?
Yeah, so I wrote the song actually. I wrote most of it and then took it to a co-writer because it was this like heavy song. I took it
Yeah.
to a friend and I was like, "Is this too much?" Yeah, like,
Right. Right.
and so she helped me sort of feel assured and putting the rest of the lyrics down that I had in my head. Her name is Crystal B. She's an independent artist
Okay.
in her own right, that I write with sometimes. And then I hired a company called the Online Recording Studio to do the production.
Got it.
And I worked with a producer named Dan Weeks. And I think he and I have a great collaborative relationship because we talked about the meaning of the song and the story behind the song, and he really helped me sort of embody that in the production. So you hear a lot of sort of ambient, atmospheric um, sounds
Right.
in the background, but then the rest of it is sort of minimal, so it reinforces the meaning of the song.
Absolutely. Any production gimmicks or novelties honestly just would have taken away from the experience, I think. You know what I mean? Like it didn't need to be overly flashy. It wasn't
No,
about the background, it was about the message at hand. Like we're all living
totally.
through this experience and there's nothing like relatable music to kind of fall back on and
Yeah,
be
and
like,
I
I'm
think
not alone.
that's the strength in my songwriting as I write deeply personal,
Yeah,
sort of raw lyric driven songs. And so um, I loved what he did because he added minimally but really thoughtfully. Um, and that's what a great production is it just supports the lyrics.
I agree. As far as the actual creation of the song, did you do anything different or approach it differently compared to Soul Tide?
Yes. She says, and then has to think.
Hey,
um,
listen, we're all on our own schedule.
right. No,
It's
well,
fine.
I would say both of these songs were a challenge for me
Sure.
to produce, because Soul Tide was hard to sort of locate
Yeah.
sonically. We could have taken it in a lot of different directions. But then it really just became, about the piano in the song and sort of the movement of the song.
Sure.
Whereas this one is a little bit more of an outlier for me on the album. And so it was just much more of a collaboration than some of my other work because
Oh,
um, yeah, but just because the production really added an element that I couldn't add just with my guitar. Yeah.
right. That's the thing that people don't understand is that
Mm-hmm.
production is like the other half of the brain. It's like speaking a language you don't know. And
Totally,
yeah.
totally. And I write a lot with Dan now. I work really well with him.
Hmm.
Who he is a producer for the online recording studio. And I feel like when we started talking about this song, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I know that it's the right language.
Sure. I mean, it's a learning experience. It really is like learning a new language,
Totally.
especially with how far in technology production has gone. It's like you can watch a couple YouTube videos, but it doesn't even do justice
Oh
to years of
gosh,
work.
no.
And
There's
the fact that it's always revolving and changing. It's like you
of
need it. You
course.
need a person. You can't do it all yourself. So
Totally.
completely
So I
understand.
was able to do he did all the instrumental in his studio, and then recorded the vocals here.
Got it. I love that.
Hmm.
Considering that this is the second single of the year, and you obviously said that there's more on the way, are you the planner type of like, okay, we're going to put out a single a month, or the record is going to drop on this day, so we need to do this, this, and this?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at like a big whiteboard.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, perfect. No, there's some people that just wing it, and they're like, well, I don't know, just got to figure it out as it comes.
No, I'm like very intensely focused.
Good.
Um, and so I have another single coming out at the beginning of July, called Heartbroken, that is more
Nice.
specifically about motherhood, the
Hmm.
experience of being a mother in, a time of unrest in the world. And then that's how many? Three. And then two more singles before the album drops on October 21st, I believe is the date, late October.
Nice. Okay, people. So listen, there's a lot more coming, so
Yeah.
stay tuned. Are we going to not necessarily see an experimentation, but things along the same lines as what we've heard so far?
Um, yes and no. There's some of the songs on the album definitely. I feel like I really developed my sound over the course of this project.
Yeah,
I grew up in Nashville, singing and performing in Nashville. So I definitely have like an Americana sort of history.
totally.
And so there's a little bit of a taste of that on some of the tracks on this album, and then I think I really come into my own sound, which is more of a like sort of soulful pop infused,
Hmm.
um, with definitely some folk elements, um, sound. I don't know if I already said that. Through the creation of this album, so there are definitely some that land more in the Americana world, and then some that are a little bit more pop forward like this one.
That was a great answer. And it's super funny because I was just about to ask, like, hey, if you could give me the elevator pitch of what your music might sound like, but you've just done it. So if that sounds like something you'd like, then I say go for it. No, you're right though. It's not, I mean, that's kind of just music nowadays. It's not just straightforward pop, or it's not just
Yeah.
country. Like there's so many elements of everything, and everything is pulling from each other. Is what you listen to in your free time, does that reflect the music you're making? Or are you trying to do something completely different?
Well, it's funny that you ask that because a lot of the feedback I get is that I remind people of the female singer-songwriters that I was listening to as a
Mhm.
teenager, like Natalie Merchant,
Okay,
Alanis Morissette,
sure.
Dido, like because I was a 90s kid,
Sure.
which was not intentional,
No, it's just what you
which
grew
was
up
very
with. Yeah,
unconscious, right? But
yeah.
I find that sort of beautiful and like a full circle moment,
Right.
like Jagged Little Pill was the first thing I ever bought with my own money, first
Awesome.
music I ever bought with my own money. And then as I'm writing new stuff, I'm definitely, listening to um, who have I been using as references? Yaba, Cunningham, Maggie Rogers, just like trying to take inspiration from other female singer songwriters about how to
Totally.
challenge myself lyrically and in melody in particular. But so yes and no, and all of the above.
Great. And how long have you been making music for?
I wrote my first, well, making music. I was the kid who like got in trouble for singing at the kitchen table, you know,
Awesome.
like or
That's
at
the
the
kid
dinner
you want to
table.
be and
Right. Yeah.
aspire to be.
Like my mom was like, okay, we're
Okay,
having a
we're trying to eat
conversation
here.
now. Yeah. And I studied piano as a child. Again, I was in Nashville, so I had a lot of unique opportunities
Yeah,
being in that sort of creative place. And then I wrote my first song when I was 14 and had a lot of cool opportunities when I was younger and living in Nashville. So, you know, that was what, 20 years ago?
all right. Okay,
Hmm.
so then sort of the follow-up to that is, what was there a single thing or just a series of small things that you went from taking it more on the amateur side to like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this professionally, I'm gonna get into a studio and do the thing.
Sure. Well, I had some studio time as a teenager
Sure.
in Nashville, but the music industry is very different then. You really had to like get a
Yeah.
record deal.
Yeah, my goodness.
And, I wanted to go to college
Right.
and I wanted to work with people. So I ended up going to college and then getting a master's degree in clinical social work.
Nice.
And I always wanted to work for myself. So I built a private practice doing psychotherapy in New York City,
Wow.
um, and very passionate about working about healing and helping people come into themselves. And for me, music is sort of my way of doing that. And
Yep.
so, very naturally, I mean, I've always written and done music, but very naturally during the pandemic, when I really struggled with my own mental health as the mother of an infant and a toddler, music was the thing, writing songs was what sort of helped me get through that. And why did I decide? I mean, honestly, it was just, I think, like a lot of creative people during the pandemic, it's like now or never, you know?
You know what? I
Like,
hear that answer so much, and it's just amazing that you could have the same process as like literally thousands of other people. And it's like,
totally.
why not? It
Why
gave
not? And I
right.
found myself, because everything went remote, it was
Mm-hmm.
available to me professionally in a way that it wasn't before
Yep.
because I, again, have young children.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a production class online. I'd never done my own production before. And it started out as a pandemic hobby, but I very quickly found myself making like a bunch of demos at home and was like, oh, I could do this independently and
Right.
own my own masters and put music out in the world in a way that I couldn't 20 years ago. So I decided to take a risk and follow that.
I love it. I'm not trying to like over exaggerate the way that I'm saying it, but it's really an inspiring answer because it doesn't matter if it's music related or even art related. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
there are so many people that put their lives into some sort of perspective over the past 2 years and are
Mm-hmm.
finally following their passions and being like, life isn't just about sitting in these four walls and figuring it out on a daily basis. Like, I have one life, let's hit these goals. And even if it
Yes,
doesn't work out, at least I gave it, a valiant effort. And it's
totally.
it's inspiring. So I mean, I love that.
Thank you. And
You're
on
very
a
welcome.
not to stay on this for too long, but I think for me on like a larger the larger view for me is like, if what are my children going to see me doing, like
Yes, yeah.
what are my how this is a really challenging time, like what can I embody for them as an example of how to find joy even when things are difficult, and when we really don't know what the future, last generation, when
Jeez.
when I'm
Yeah,
not sure what their future is going to look like, where it doesn't always feel certain that they're just going to like go to college and get a job and buy a house in the
yeah.
way that it might have for our parents. So what can I do that is purposeful so that they can look up at me and say, like that's I can emulate that.
No, for it's true. You're a role model, and things aren't the way they used to be. And
Mm-hmm.
literally on a daily basis, things feels like life is changing from like the life that our parents said that we were going to have. And
Totally.
it's a wild experience to wake up and be like, oh, I'm in this. This is life, and
Uh-huh.
I'm, my own path. But whew, yeah, heavy stuff, crazy stuff for sure. But
Sorry.
no,
Did I
no, it's
mention that
okay.
I'm a therapist? I like to
No,
take
it's
you.
okay. Listen, I don't go to therapy, but I talk to people like this all the time. Sometimes it feels like a therapy session that goes both ways, so I'm okay with it.
It's all about connection,
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
We're recording this in the middle of June right now, which means we're
Mm-hmm.
just about to hit the halfway point of the year,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to say in its own. I can't believe it's almost July.
Totally.
Normally this is a question that I ask at the beginning of the year, but it's still the same. Where would you like to see yourself in the next year in terms of like your professional career? What would you like to
For
happen?
2023?
Yeah,
Oh, you mean a year from now?
365 days from this moment.
Yeah, so I'm actually um, pretty far along writing another album.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
so
You can't
I,
stop the wheels from turning.
I can't stop.
No.
It's out of control.
Yep.
So I would like to do this one justice and make sure that it finds the people who need these songs.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of shows coming up. I'm going to be doing a show a month
Very
by the
cool.
end of this year. And then next year, I'd like to be recording another album and, taking it a step further.
See what happens.
Hmm.
What is a show gonna look like for you? Is it gonna be all originals? Are you gonna throw some covers in there?
It'll be, I guess, the first show I have coming up is at Rockwood Music Hall in New York.
Nice.
So it's a 45-minute set, so it'll be all originals.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely partial to playing originals.
Totally understand. I've got a couple more questions for you at this point, but I want to know, because you're an artist and you're consuming all sorts of media, what have you been enjoying lately? Whether it be music, movies, television, how have you been disassociating from the real world?
Ooh, what have I been watching? I have been watching Grey's Anatomy of late.
Oh, okay. How's that? I've never got
I
into it.
Grey's Anatomy came out when I was in college, so I
Yeah.
was like a diehard fan. And then during the pandemic, and I completely lost touch with it
Hmm.
um, in my 20s. But during the pandemic, I went back and watched it from
Right.
the
No,
first
I hear that a
season.
lot.
And also, I think because I was like learning about sync and like music and how people
Sure.
get, and Grey's Anatomy has made so many
Oh,
musicians.
that's true. Yeah. I didn't even
Like
make
the
that
whole
connection.
sync
Hmm.
industry started with Snow Patrol and Grey's Anatomy. And then I recently realized that I had not watched season 18. So I am,
They're probably never going to stop
probably
because,
not. I don't know why they would.
right? People keep watching.
Shonda Rhimes is her brilliance is unmatched,
Yeah,
and I'm still sucked in. So,
that's
and it's
okay.
like it's great escapism. It's just like totally outside of my realm of possibility and reality. So,
I get it. My mom has been trying to get me to watch it for probably all 18 seasons, and I'm just like, it's one of those things where it's like, if there were maybe 3 or 4 seasons, like I could catch up real quick, but I've
I
got
know
to
it's an
dedicate my
investment.
life to it.
It's an investment.
Yeah.
If you ever decide to have children, it would be a great one to start when you come home from the hospital with a newborn baby,
Okay.
because you watch a lot of TV then.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like
Hmm.
I'd watch Scrubs, something a little more on the funny
Light.
side,
Yeah.
light,
Yeah, I
somewhat
like to go
related.
dark. I will.
Okay,
My
cool.
husband likes funny stuff, and I like
Sure.
go straight for the jugular.
Yeah, all right. I'll figure that out when I come to that. But yeah, I'll take your word for it. Um, Laura, I've got one more question to ask
Sure.
you, and basically the question is for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for
Hmm.
the person that's going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them?
I would like to say that my music is about talking about making visible the things and feelings in life that are really challenging but equally universal. And so I want them to find themselves in my songs and know that we're all going through the same things in different forms, and that the joy of my life is being able to share my heart and have someone else connect to it. Um, yeah, that's all.
I think that's also a great answer and a perfect ending point here. And Lauren, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this and to come on and to talk about this. And for everyone else out there, the song is called Last Generation. But as we've spoken about, there's so much more on the way. So we're going to have links so that people can listen and share and follow along and do all that fun stuff. But I sincerely want to thank you for taking the time and being open and honest in this. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to speak with you.
Likewise.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I look forward to the next single coming out. And I want to thank you again.
Thanks, Austin.
You're very welcome. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.